What's going on, everybody? This is your man, Dr. John C. Turner, aka the Professor JT. We're here on the Doc Chat with some phenomenal doctors, and I'm telling you, I want to say thank you first of all for these great doctors, all the great viewers, everybody who has tuned in these last few weeks as we are at the Doc Chat season finale. Now, don't think that this is over, folks. Oh, we just taken a little bit of a pause to say thank you to these great doctors who have been on the show these last few weeks. And I want to show you some stuff to let y'all know that these folks are tuning in to the Doc Chat. Let me pull up some stuff here before I introduce these great doctors. All right, this is my guy, Jeff Johnson. He made sure he introduced me to a great principal in Indianapolis because he knew the Doc Chat was popping and he wanted to make sure he knew about it. We got a doctor who just got accepted to George Washington University. And he said, I'm enjoying all the knowledge being shared on the Doc Chat. And we appreciate him getting that knowledge from us. And also wanted to make sure that, I think I had one more, but if not, it's okay. But I just wanted to say thank y'all so much for everybody tuning in. If you are tuning in with us, make sure you let us know in the comments who you are, where you're from. If you completed a doctorate program, let us know which one you have. If you're in a doctorate program, let us know which one you're in. And I'm telling you, this is the conversation we need to have. Now, we're going to take just 8 seconds to pause in remembrance of George Floyd right now. If we all can do that right now. And we thank y'all for that.
Well, we can't pause 9 minutes and 38 seconds.
Nah, hey, I'm telling you, Doc, this is why we're here, because we want to show immense love and support to all the people, because we all were affected. If you are definitely a person of color, in an incredible way by horrific death and murder of George Floyd 3 years ago. We're not going to waste your time. We're going to be here for a while now. This is how this goes on the Doc Chat. We are going to have these great doctors tell us how they feel about certain questions I'm going to ask, and we're going to jump into this topic very heavy. I have Dr. James, Dr. Young, Dr. Davis, Dr. Regalado, and Dr. Randolph. All these doctors have been on the Doc Chat, and I got to show love even to Dr. James, Dr. Young. This is y'all third time being on here, y'all. Like, hey, I appreciate y'all. Appreciate all y'all. Dr. Randolph, a great book that's come out. Dr. Davis doing great work. We salute you, sir, and representing the Latinx community. Dr. Regalado, I'm telling you, we got heavy hitters right here, and they're going to come with it. So this is how it's going to go. I am letting them know right now the questions, and they're going to get 5 minutes FaceTime to give their thoughts. Then we want comments. We want questions. If you're watching us, if you feel like you want to join in a conversation, go ahead and put those out there. We appreciate that. We really, really do. So what I want to make sure y'all do, and we appreciate you, Dr. Rodney. We appreciate you, sir, so much. I'm going to go ahead and let Dr. James lead off. The first question. May 25th, 2020. Where did you first hear about George Floyd, the murder, the situation? How did it make you feel? You're up on the Doc Chat. We appreciate you.
Go ahead and start my 5 minutes. You know, I start my clock. How did I feel? Where it was happenstance. I happened to turn on the TV, and the news was on, and this came out, and I couldn't believe it. I thought it was unreal, right? Like, we're not this far gone. And then I had to stop and think about it because, as you know, from my first appearance on the Doc Chat, I have children. And out of my 5 children, 4 are males. So it really hit home for me to say, what are we really doing? What is the narrative here? What is it that we're trying to portray in society here? That this is okay? that this is how we deal with situations. This man literally fought for his life, begging, crying for his mother at one point, Yeah. And all I could picture was my children. I have, out of those 4 boys, 3 are teenagers. 1 is a grown up. Do you know? I know we look at it and we say, oh, our kids are grown. They're out and they're on. That terrified me. My son is in a whole nother state from me. And to sit there and watch this grown man on the floor crying for his mother, begging for his life. All I could think of was, what's going on? Where's my son? Is he safe? How do I keep my kids safe? It blew me.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. Yeah. How do I know that when my daughter, she's the only girl, how do I know that when another teenager, how do I know when she goes out, the person she's with is not subject to this kind of treatment, that she's not subject to this kind of treatment, simply because you happen to give off a certain look that doesn't gel well with the person that stopped you. Yeah. You happen to be in a situation that someone else deems you should not be in. That is the problem right there. Because of your insecurities, because of your false pretenses, because of your attitude, my life is in jeopardy. So I it was floored. I couldn't understand how we had, and I can't even say double back, because we've seen in recent years that what we thought was so far gone has just been lying beneath the surface. And the blatancy and the total disrespect and disregard for certain human life is immeasurable. It's ridiculous, and it's out there. It's in the forefront. So yes, I was troubled by it, and all the instances that has happened since then, because I think that was just a catalyst for many things to come. It was like, okay, put it blatantly out there, and guess what? There's going to be several other incidents to follow. And it just showed how disregarded our life is.
Powerful. Yeah. Man. Now, Dr. Young is a great gentleman, and he always says ladies first. So we're going to allow the ladies to go first. And we're going to go with Dr. Randolph. We appreciate you, Dr. Randolph. Dr. Randolph just launched a brand new book. We appreciate you being on the doc chat. The question is there. How did you feel seeing George Floyd's murder? May make sure we got that right now. Here we go. May 25th, 2020. What was your reaction?
To be perfectly honest with everyone, I don't remember the day. I don't know if it was a Tuesday. I don't know if it was a Wednesday. I don't know what day it was. There are 2 things. Not 2 things. There are several things that stand out in my mind. Okay. But to talk about the day, I'll talk about the day after it happened.
Okay.
Because that's the day I remember. Woke up working from home, and coincidentally, I was in the thick of my doctoral program. Working from home because we were at the height of a pandemic that shut down our world, something that most of us have never lived through before. And woke up, got dressed, well, whatever you want to call being dressed, at 8 o'clock in the morning when I'm sitting with nobody else in the house but me. And I remember the somberness of not just the situation that this man died and he had a child and that he called out for his mother, but it was the somberness of being Black in America. The fact that every day I have to wake up to this crap, or as Joe Biden said when he was running for office, this malarkey, okay? I have to wake up every day And I have to experience inside the comfort of my own home the inflections of enslavement almost 500 years after the first Africans came to what we now call the US. Okay, so take all of that, and then I'm supposed to work for a living. Even though I wasn't with the people, and even though I wasn't forced to be trapped in a building full of white people, because most of the people I worked with were white, I still am supposed to keep up some level of pretense, because that's all it is at this point. It's a faux, it's a hoax, it's a pretense. And all I did was I muddled through. I did what had to be done. And I specifically remember calling, I was trying to refinance my mortgage at the time. So all you all out there who are people of color, specifically Black people, home ownership. And the lady I spoke with, I didn't know her from Adam, okay? I didn't know if she was Black, white, Turkish, Hungarian, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, whatever. But she said, well, how are you today? And I said, you know what? I'm here. And she was like, oh, well, are you doing okay today? No, I'm not. I said, I decided this morning that I'm giving myself permission as an educated Black person who refuses to believe the hype that anyone deserves to die like that I'm not okay today. And I'm not telling anyone that I'm okay. And if you ask me, I'm not okay. I said, so you know what? I'm sorry you asked me, because I'm just not okay. Unbeknownst to me at the beginning of the call, she was a Black American. And she began to weep.
Wow.
On the phone with me.
Wow.
Because she was trying to keep up the pretense of being okay. But the heaviness of the drudgery of the definition of what it is to be Black in this here United States of America was too much for her.
Yeah.
Yet, as someone who was a mother who had children, who was trying to work so she could pay her bills, she just had to keep going, right? Yeah. We have these wonderful mental health days, but nobody understood if every Black person took a mental health day the next day, well, why does everybody need a mental health day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so to the point that Dr. James just made in terms of how the situation unfolded in that George Floyd call for his mother, this is the part that I want some people to really take hold of. His mom was dead. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. To be in such a precocious, precarious, and ultimately fatal situation that you have no cognitive reality of time, that you call forth to the only person you feel might provide you some security or help in that moment, and that no person is no longer on earth. Mm-hmm. That's what needs to be digested. Is not just the fact that he was irrevocably killed, but that in his most vulnerable moment, all cognitive, sensual abilities, everything chronological went out the window. Mm-hmm. And so imagine being that disparate that you call for your mama. Exactly. You don't realize mama is gone, daddy is gone, sister or brother, but that person you call for can't help you because they're not here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, it's not just about, everybody says, oh, do you remember the day or where you were when they say they remember when King was shot or Kennedy was shot? Some people tell you Malcolm X, some people will tell you Medgar Evers. I didn't live through any of that, okay? Right. I can tell you where I was when Michael Jackson died. Now that I do remember, okay? Huge Michael Jackson fan. It's not so much what I remember about that specific day, which again is not much. It's every day after that we have to live here without effectual, fervent change, with more than just lip service about someone else's ideology of what a commitment to diversity and learning and education is. Exactly. That's what's more important. Exactly. It is today, because yesterday has come and gone. Have we done anything to repair the sins of that day 3 years ago? And if we have not, which statistics will show you as it relates to Blacks in America, in policing and incarceration, we have failed to right those wrongs.
Yes.
So it's not even about how I felt that day. It's about how I feel more than 365 times 3 days later, knowing that no genuine nature of repair, reciprocity, or reparation has occurred for the community, for his family, and for those children yet to be born.
Powerful. Absolutely powerful. And we're going to go more into that because I'm telling you right now, that is how a lot of people are feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go to Dr. Regalado. We appreciate you being on the doc chat. Telling you we got everybody 5 minutes. Now I got some heavy talkers right here, y'all. They can talk. But I'm telling you, they drop dimes like Steph Curry out here, and I want to hear it. So, Dr. Leslie Regalado, you're on the doc chat. Give me your best 5 minutes as we ask you the question: how did you feel seeing George Floyd's murder, May 25th, 2020?
Well, like Dr. Randolph, I don't recall that moment that I knew about it. I recall the day and the time, but I can say there were two things that I specifically remember thinking from when it happened to the current day.
Okay.
The first thing is the reality of lived experiences of BIPOC people, right? This was a horrible thing. None of us will ever forget it. This is something that will be with us forever. But for those of us that are still here, there is a specific experience of being a person of color, whether you're Black or Latino or Asian or whatever it is, right? If you are not white and you don't have some sort of privilege in this country, and I'm talking about specifically race and ethnicity, because there are other kinds of disadvantaged groups or whatnot, but the genesis of this movement is about people of color. So that was the first thing I thought of, is our lived experiences. How many times do we have to deal with this? How many times are we going to hear this same story? And trust me, this happens in the Latino community as well. It's amazing that, this has just become more of the same. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I thought of is the overall state of the institution of police work. Do you realize it takes longer to become a cosmetologist than it does a police officer? And that is, please don't, I'm not belittling someone who genuinely does criminal justice work. They've studied for years. They've dedicated their life's work to making our world safer. But if you stand back and look at it from an institutional perspective, you don't have to have a college degree to become a police officer. You don't have to have a certain amount of in-depth study. You can just go in there and do your thing. To me, when I say that out loud, to say it takes longer to become a cosmetologist than a police officer, that's just crazy. And I think about that officer who was on his neck at some point in the moment. Why did he not turn into a human being?
Wow.
Because regardless of what your background is, at some point, all of us have these human moments. We've all done things. I'm not talking about this, but small things throughout the day, and you think, gosh, that wasn't good, or I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have said that, or I was wrong, but when we're talking about putting someone's life in danger, at what point should he have said, me being a human being and doing, if he truly thought something was wrong, there was a different way he could have resolved that, because he had other people with him. And where were they that they didn't say, hey man, something's wrong here. You are going to kill this man. Something is not right. where did that line of humanity blur?
Yeah.
And that's really my takeaway from this, because again, before then, since then, and after today, this will happen again.
Right.
We've just got to get to the point as human beings when we say, why is this happening? And why has our country become so just, engaged with this idea of the police being the leaders and the disciplinarians of society? Yeah, we do need structure in society. We do.
Yeah.
But this is a career path that has serious consequences if something goes left, not only for the people they kill, but for themselves. Look at all of the people who were adjacently involved in this circumstance and what has happened to them. It puts everyone in danger. And it makes me so sad.
Exactly.
You're exactly right. Exactly.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. But I think about it. I'm not a mother, so let me say that I don't have any of my own children. But I think about my nephews. I think about my godson. I think about all the young people who I mentor and love and I'm close to and that I've helped raise, and all of the conversations that my husband and I have had with these young men, and talking to them about the importance of reality and behaving a certain way and presenting yourself a certain way. And yes, you have to be yourself, but it is sickening that we have to have these conversations with young men of color to make them uber aware of what it's like to engage with police.
That's true.
Right.
Powerful statement. And people are chiming in. We got to make sure we attend to them. Thus begets the question: is it possible to lose the capacity in human? I mean, we kind of seen it, and they said, "Will you remind and show the people George Floyd?" I can't do it. I'll be flat honest. I never watched the video. I couldn't do it. One, because, and I believe one of the doctors have kind of went into it. I felt like that was me. That's why I couldn't watch that video.
Yeah.
And I understand. And of course, there's places you can go see it, but if you can stomach it. And Dr. Woody, we appreciate you. Congratulations on getting that doctorate done, sir. We're proud of you. And he definitely says, law enforcement professional, I knew it was wrong. I witnessed a murder, couldn't intervene. Unimaginable how fellow officers did not stop it. I mean, it's one of those things you really start to look at even 3 years later and you say, why? And we're going to go to my frat, Dr. Young out here. We appreciate you for being on, brother. We got about 5 minutes for you. I want all the feels because I'm telling you, these women dropped it. They let us know how they felt. So I want to know from my brothers, how did you feel being a black man?
So that was hard to follow. All three of them were hard to follow, but I am going to do my best to do it in a way that speaks to the heart, speaks to the head, and speaks to the issue. Let me preface kind of my comments by this. For the last 24 years, I've spent my professional career as a federal agent. I've been in federal law enforcement since I was just shy of 22 years old. And I'm close to retirement on the other end of it. So my lens in looking at this, I had a range of emotions watching it. I'm sitting there watching it on CNN. And one of the first things, I promise you ever have something happen, experience happen, and you keep hearing something in the back of your ear, a song. I kept hearing Marvin Gaye, "What's Going On."
Wow.
I heard Marvin Gaye. I could hear Marvin Gaye, "What's Going On," because there was pain, there was parody in it, and I said to myself, where the hell are we? Where the hell are we, and what did we become? The video, you said my feelings in the video. I was appalled.
Yeah.
I was
heartbroken.
Pull your
mic up a little bit, Doc. Pull your mic up to you a little bit. Make sure we got you. Because this is powerful stuff.
Okay. Is that better?
That's real good. Yeah.
I was heartbroken, angry, right? And um, it reminded me, or I felt as though it had a return to the antebellum South, or that we had returned to the Jim Crow South. And so it made me wonder where we've been the last 50 years. What's going on the last 50 years? So then I start thinking, right? Here's the, let's talk facts. Let's talk history. Um, U.S. policing began as slave patrols.
Yep, that's it. That's fact.
That's how the police that stop you and give you a speeding ticket are the same ones that run into an active shooter. Their genesis was in chasing us. Their genesis was in turning us for the purpose of labor, right? So when you understand the genesis of American policing, you have to give it some color and context. Context. The flip side of that is not all police are bad. Not all cops are bad. There are good officers of all complexions, black, white. We are seeing. I mean, it is being a narrative is being highlighted, but I've worked with some. There are some good ones, and there are some terrible ones. It cuts both ways.
Yeah.
We learned that in Memphis, right? When we saw what happened in Memphis, I was sitting there like, I hope they're not black. I'm sitting there, honest to goodness, like I hope. And then I see 5 brothers, and I'm like, they know better, right? And so it goes back to a culture.
Yeah.
There is a culture that needs to shift in this country relative to the justice system and relative to policing. I think that more needs to be done to get to the heart of the man, right, and woman in terms of addressing pathology. There needs to be way more done on psychiatric evaluations. There's no biases testing relative to whether you have implicit bias, whether you were raised in whether you were raised in a racist or an anti non-diverse environment. There's no testing. There's no testing that. When you go take the test for the police department, there's no testing for that. And Southern Poverty Law Center has said that that American police departments are being used to further far right agendas and white nationalist agendas, and so I'm not. That's just the facts. That's where the data lies. That's not my opinion. That's the truth. And so we have to get back to the heart of all this. And then the flip side of me, right? So the other half of me is I'm watching this man scream for his mama, and I'm appalled and I'm hurt. At the time, my wife was 4 months pregnant, and I'm bringing a black boy into the world.
Wow.
So it was starkly hitting me of what's in front of me. And now, 3 years later, I have a black son, and nothing. And listen, it was a reminder, right? I don't care how many schools you get. I don't care what neighborhood you move into. I don't care what kind of car you drive. I don't care what social order of the stratosphere you fall into. There is a placement. Some still feel that there's a placement in this world, and if you don't know your place, then there are consequences to that.
Right.
So we need to be very steadfast, very direct, and very real about the country has a sickness to a degree. There needs to be not everybody, but we have some things that we really, really need to address, and it's only those actors, those bad actors, only gotten more and bolder. And to your point about the other officers, one of my main points of contention was, as another officer, and Dr. Whitty, he can probably contest this. At some point, you got to be man enough and human enough to pull that guy off of him and say, "You're going to kill this guy." Grab him off of him. You see what's going on.
Yeah.
So we get these folks that sometimes join police departments that they're cowards. They need the badge to hide behind. They weren't the guy in high school or in college, and now it has a gang-like mentality attached to them, and they're somebody. And now, they're no longer going to be bullied because they got, they have the juice. So we need to really start thinking about, in as much as police reform needs to be done in a certain way, who we bring into these departments, how we train them, and how we raise them up.
Powerful. Absolutely powerful. We appreciate you. Ms. Dawn, we appreciate you checking in. She's saying how she had to school some folk, had to let them know, like, this is what's happened, this is what's going on, because we understand how oblivious a lot of people were for what was happening. So let us know where you were, how you felt, 3 years ago today, May 25th, 2020, the murder of George Floyd. We got one more doctor here, Dr. Lawrence Davis. We appreciate your service, sir. Many years in the military. It's you, man. You're up. Tell me, where were you? How did you feel? What was going through your mind?
Well, I happened to actually come home at that time, and for whatever reason, I turned the TV on, and I probably was CNN. And let me preface my comments by saying this: each of my previous contributors have touched on uh, just about every aspect that I uh, would have wanted to address. So I'm going to look and present this from a personal perspective and take you all back just a few years before George Floyd and lead you up to that fateful day and to where we are right now in less than 5 minutes. But the catalyst to me for what took place on May 25th of 2020 was a direct result of a laxation and the ability of white people to be able to feel that now, with the election of Donald Trump in 2016, that now we do not have to hide how we feel.
Mm.
Now, Dr. Young touched on the origination of cops, and I'm glad he did, so I don't have to go into detail. But those cops were doing exactly what they had been originally uh, 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 created to do,
Mm.
was to go after black men.
Mm-hmm.
And the question was, well, where was their humanity? They were doing what they do.
Right. Right.
It
Right.
wasn't a matter of where their humanity was. They were doing what they were supposed to do, what they have been wanting to do, what they
Mm.
have been doing for over 400 years.
Right. Right.
Okay? And that is lynch black men.
Mm.
I mean, they were doing what they're supposed to do. And where it brings me to on a personal level, and I don't know if we've touched on it to the extent that I think we need to, but and I know Dr. Randolph did kind of go into it from a personal perspective, but black people as a whole, and I can speak personally for myself, there has been a mental trauma associated with the events of the last 16 years. And I was in a texting conversation earlier today with a white friend of mine who was trying to uh, explain to me how some of her family uh, tend to believe and do what they do because they were Republicans. The bottom line of it is that that is who they are. And when George Floyd was killed, there was a broad perspective by them trying to justify it and make excuses for it. The same thing that they did on January 6th.
Mm.
Basically, you have a broad cross section of this country that justifies what they do because this is who they are and this is where we are as a nation.
Wow. Wow.
There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
That's what we are. So what we have to decide amongst ourselves as a people, we're going to do about it,
Mm.
and how much is enough. Because just in this year alone, and I'm gonna miss a few, but Alonzo Bagley, Tyree Nichols, Timothy McCree
Mhm.
Johnson, Irvo Otieno, and then there was the young black man on the subway. It's a continuing pattern. That's this year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is a continuing trend, and we as a people gonna have to decide what we're gonna do to stop it.
Powerful.
Because
Absolutely.
right now it's affecting our minds. It is definitely affecting my mind because I thought this country before 2016 was on the path towards uh, coming together as a nation, but the election of Barack Obama showed us that we were nowhere near where we were supposed to be and could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that Donald Trump was a reflection of it, and it has just steadily been the enunciation of exactly what they feel and how they feel about us ever since Donald Trump was in office.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Telling y'all, we got the great doctors here. If you're tuning in with us, let us know how you feel. Let us know your thoughts. Be honest with you. You know, a lot of people don't want us to talk about these things because we're hashing out stuff. We're not talking about folks down in other states that might be trying to get rid of certain topics like this. But the doc chat is on, and we're gonna talk about it
My
because
home state.
this is how healing happens. And we're not trying to rehash things. We're trying to get people to get out what you
Right.
really, really feel. We're gonna head on back to Dr. James because we're not gonna waste no time. We're gonna give her another 5 minutes out there, and we're just gonna hit it right from the bat. Where are we right now as a nation? 3 years
Mm.
post George Floyd's murder. Where are we as a people, as a nation? Floor is yours.
Okay, where are we as a nation? To be honest, and this is my personal opinion, I do not think we are anywhere different than we were when we started, even prior to George Floyd happening. George Floyd is not the first situation we see like this. The issue we're having is the narrative is not being accepted, it's not being understood, and it's not being discussed. Right, we keep in everything we've just talked about. I've heard every one of us mention the fact that where was the humanity, where was the humanity in all of this? Here is the problem. Let's talk about the narrative that's being spun. Right, you cannot show me humanity if you cannot see the humanity within me,
Mm,
right?
that's good.
If we're going to keep talking about that past, right? You mentioned it, Dr. Regalado. We were brought over to work. No, we were brought over as commodity.
Mm,
You talked about it, Dr. Davis. This wasn't built for us. This was our conversation backstage, right? No, this wasn't built for us. We are property. There are no rules for my property. You're no more than a chair, a horse, a cow. Why am I giving you rules, regulations, and laws to abide by?
mm,
I have a checklist for you. I have six of you, three of you, five of you. You birth. That sounds like a stock horse. That sounds like a milking calf. I
mm,
was no more than that. So now, because we won't even discuss that, right? We don't want to talk about that. How can we move forward? How can you see me as anything but? We're talking about George Floyd and what was the catalyst to that. Did we forget about Emmett Till?
mm. Yeah.
You know, did we forget about little Steiny, the youngest person to ever be executed in this country, 13 years old?
Wow. Wow.
Did we forget? These stuff didn't happen 600 years ago. These people would still be alive today. We forget that. These were boys, 14, 13,
Yeah.
and they were portrayed as men as dangers, as,
Mm.
you know, if I go out in the street and I raise my voice too tough, oh my God, oh my God, don't get her upset. But my white counterpart does the same thing and she's upset.
Mm.
She's put out of her element.
Yeah.
We have frustrated her. And so her white tears needs to be coddled. Down to we are black and brown women. What is the biggest issue we have is our medical, right? Because in medical, we are told that we can endure pain,
Wow.
you know? So we complain about pain, and how many of us have died on the operating table because we're complaining about pain that is being ignored
Mm. Yeah.
because it is deemed that we are susceptible to, you know, certain strengths that are superhuman. We're not looked at as human. So how can I now expect you to have compassion and humanity for me when you can't even see the humanity within me?
Mm. Yeah.
You know, you're shooting a 12-year-old boy in a park because he pulls out a toy gun. Because he pulls out a toy gun? We have a whole Christmas special. I'm gonna show my age now that we watch every Christmas about Radio Red Flyer and this little boy wanting his little Radio Red Flyer gun, you know? And
Yeah.
it is a holiday tradition that we watch this. Little Johnny, you're gonna poke your eye out. Did we forget about that?
Yeah.
But my son goes and plays with a gun. I gotta be careful because now he becomes a threat.
Mm.
Because the narrative that you understand is they are dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are volatile. They are not to be trusted.
Mm-hmm.
Your first instance is to defend with death, to get home to your family and your kids, right? Up to what, the other day, the young man ran into the White House with a truck, the White House. He's still alive. He's still alive.
Wow. Wow. Hey, that's what we all hear, folks. That's what we on the doc chat. We appreciate Mr. Roy jumping in there. And basically, it is a feeling that a lot of people feel. It's I didn't really understand it until I saw where Americans were. I saw where Black Americans were, and it's a powerful statement. It definitely, definitely is. And we appreciate you once again, Dr. Whitty. It's powerful, man. I'm telling you, how they look at us, how they feel
Yes.
we are, how they
Yes.
see who we
Yes.
are, and it's just one of those things to where when does it change? Will it ever change of how we're looked at as a people? Dr. Randolph, 5 minutes. Give us what you got.
Breathe easy, sis.
So first of all, because I don't want to forget, this is not in my notes. There's a wonderful book called Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome. I had
Yes.
an opportunity to attend an event hosted by the University of South Carolina earlier this year, and the author, Dr. Joyce, someone, um, did a 4-hour webinar that started at 8 o'clock my time. And I actually endured the entire thing. And I bring that up not because it's a paid solicitation, but because if you read that book and if you ever have the opportunity to listen to her expound upon her research and the content held therein, she discusses some of the matriculating effects that enslavement, slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, indoctrination, and legalized prejudices continue to have on Black Americans today, as well as society at large. That being said, to answer the question of where are we today, and these are, yes, that is the book.
Yes. Yes.
Dr. Joy DeGruy. I read that wrong. DeGruy. But great book. She's a wonderful speaker as well as academic. But again, to answer the question, where are we? And before I go into the other half of what I'm going to say, I want you to realize that although this is a very emotionally charged conversation, and be not confused, it is extremely personal to me
Yeah.
as a person who is Black American. I don't identify as Black American. That's what my skin shows you. I don't have a choice. I never passed for anything, and I never wanted to. And so I am Black in all of my unashamedness and apologetically and unabashedly. I am descendants of the African diaspora. But I want us to look at some facts, okay? Facts over feelings for just a moment. Where we are 3 years later is that there's still a wage gap that exists between white Americans and Black Americans, where Black Americans still collectively earn 1/3 of what white Americans earn. There are still unjust and uncriminal actions perpetrated against Blacks and Latinos
Yeah.
at, again, a rate of 3 to 5 times those of white Americans. That includes racial profiling, stop and frisk, the mass incarceration, the incarceration for misdemeanors that white Americans get off on. Those are facts. The educational gap that exists, there's another book called Jim Crow's Children, and I have that one on this bookshelf. The post-traumatic slave syndrome is on the other one. But I challenge you to read Jim Crow if you believe that we have come oh so far since 1954. And let me be very clear. In addition to being a doctor, I have a law degree, an MPA, and a political science degree, okay?
Yeah.
And so I understand the legislative and the litigious wins that it took for me to get there. But I also understand the socioeconomic disproportionate situations that still exist that keep us at a lower threshold.
Yes. Yes.
There's the increased infant and maternal mortality. There's the subversion of the true historical narrative that exists about America. So, in layman's terms, it's whitewashed.
Yes.
We do not
Yes.
tell the entirety of the story in this country. Now, going back to a couple of things that I heard about, 3 different people talk about, the issue is a psychopathology. There, you all have asked the question, where do people stop being human? How come they weren't human? How come someone didn't intervene? Let me give you the historical vantage point. Blacks were never intended to be seen as humans in the US.
That part.
Now,
That
before
part.
I say my next phrase, be very clear. I am a Christian. My denomination is Baptist. I am saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost by choice. But understand that during enslavement times, Christianity was used as a conversion mechanism in its effort to make us less heathenistic. Blacks were referred to as heathens, okay? And so, in that, what history does not tell us is that before we were brought over here and traded for weapons and smokes and guns, Blacks had been part of Christianity in both Europe and Africa before we decided to come to this great United States. And when I say come, I do not mean we bought a ticket, okay? The Amistad was not equal to Carnival Cruise Line. And I hear that dinger, so that means my time is up. I am going to yield the floor to the next speaker.
That's all right. We appreciate it. And we can't have all the books that you're suggesting and not put your book up. Go ahead and give a 2-second blurb about your book, real quick.
And so the beginning of the book deals with a lot of what I just talked about, but ultimately the book looks at the influence factor and the impact of the Black American church and how the leadership challenges and some of the leadership problems. Okay, I wasn't allowed to say problems and deficiencies. My chair told me no. But some of those deficiencies and those defuncts that happen in the church in terms of leadership and organizational structure, how they matriculate and pervade the rest of our society, because historically and even currently, most of the leaders in the Black community come from the church. So, in other words, when we don't get it right there, we don't get it right anywhere else either.
Powerful, absolutely powerful. We appreciate you. Appreciate you. We got folks that's chiming in. We appreciate you, Mr. Rory. Hey, just keeping it real, just being honest. That's just what it is. And we got folks to let them know this is what we're dealing with. We're angry, we're intimidating, all those different types of things. It's frustrating, but man, it's like every day for some of us. That's the reality of us waking up every day. Dr. Regalado, you are up 5 minutes. You know what the question is. Let me get it up there. Where are we as the United States of America 3 years later? Before you go, just letting folks know we appreciate you for tuning in. We got lots of folks tuning in. Let us know how you feel where we are as a nation 3 years after the murder of George Floyd. We appreciate all the comments, all the viewers. We want those comments. Tell us how you feel. Don't be shy. If you're checking us out for the first time, let us know who you are. Dr. Regalado, you are up.
So I think today we are in a state of white replacement anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it's this awareness, this hyper awareness that these groups of people are doing things, and we have access to things that we didn't have access to in the past, and all of a sudden there's this awareness of, I could be replaced, you know, there could be more of them there. I mean, all of these things, but I've heard it referred to as white replacement anxiety. And I think from a DE&I perspective, I don't think DE&I initiatives, especially in corporate America, were intended to be anti-white. I think they were meant to be meant to shed light on the impact of systemic racism, and I think they were meant to be pro people that were underrepresented, and to bring our issues to the table. You know, I just had a conversation, and actually, while you guys were talking, I was looking back at something, a text exchange between myself and my cousin Louisa, who lives in California. And I sent something to her that I saw on social media just yesterday. And it stated that in Florida, they passed a law that said that they're no longer going to acknowledge the driver's license of undocumented people.
Yes, yes.
I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
Also, if you are found to be aware of or housing someone
felony.
who's undocumented, that you can be criminally charged.
Yeah.
I could not believe it. I was really sick at my stomach when I saw that, and I thought about, you know, just again going back to what I said in my first little piece, our lives, our experiences, the things that we have to be aware of, because this law was meant mainly to hurt Hispanic people, right? And then also, you know, other people of color who immigrate here. They don't talk about people that come from other countries they specifically plan their vacations to have their babies here so that their children can be American. They're targeting people that are coming to the US to build their lives here so that their children and their children's children can have a better life. And just because that I'm Hispanic doesn't mean that I think you should break the law. I don't take that position. But I think what we have to do as a country and our state is to rethink what it is that we're trying to achieve. The reality is, when someone is undocumented in this country, they apply, you know, for their, you know, papers or whatnot to be able to go to school, just basic things, get a driver's license, the DACA, the Dreamers, you know. You realize that stack of papers is this thick, and it asks specific questions. Where did you enter this country? How did you get here? You know, they want things like your shot records, your school IDs. I mean, they are tracing you back as far as they can. And I just think what that does to children and to young people who truly are just starting their lives, and all they're trying to do is to move forward. We're not trying to replace anyone. We are not trying to hurt anyone. We are trying to do better for ourselves. And I feel hurt. I feel disappointed that this whole white replacement anxiety is a thing. Why can't people, going back to me saying, where's the humanity? Just be happy for us that we're moving into a better place, that we're contributing. The more we contribute, the better things are going to be for everyone. Wow. And what they do is they put us in a position where they hide information. When you think about critical race theory, or you think about, Black history, or you think about really talking about being undocumented, something as normal and simple as this, there's not real and truthful information. As someone who teaches race and ethnicity, I've always taken a stand to talk about being undocumented with all of my students. And there were several students in my classes over the years that they really didn't know what being undocumented really meant. There was a terminology, the terminology that they thought of, illegal. Okay, illegal. Like, what does that really mean? How does it really affect your life? If you can't have a driver's license, if you don't have access to federal student financial aid, if you don't have a social security number, how are you supposed to work? If people say, oh, Mexicans are lazy, well, how are we supposed to work? What kinds of jobs can we do if we don't have a social security number? And let me say this, do you want to do that job? So that's the thing. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the movie A Day Without a Mexican, but it's meant to be satirical. It's kind of a funny movie, but the truth is, if my people shut it down, this whole country is going to shut down. And I think it's in everyone's best interest to support those of us, all of us, who want to do better. And when I say all of us, I'm not just talking about Hispanic people or Black people, anybody. If you are a person who wants to do more, to be more helpful, to be more of a contributor, to give back to other people, it starts inside of yourself. Yeah. It starts with initiative and drive and desire, and that want to just leave this place better than we found it. And so that's really where I think we are now.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Like I said, we appreciate everybody tuning in. We appreciate the incredible comments. We appreciate these great doctors. And Dr. Young, you got to come up behind these powerful women again, man. I mean, it's on you, but 5 good minutes. Where are we? Where are we at?
I probably shouldn't have been a gentleman. It should have went first this time because they fired up.
Yeah, they
are blazing. Listen, I'm left to feel like there is a referendum on democracy and diversity in this country. Mm-hmm. That there is just a true, it's almost it's hypocrisy, right, at the largest level, because the hypocrisy of the West, right? We tell everybody else in the world how to live. We tell everybody else how they should treat their people. We tell other countries, African nations, they shouldn't slaughter their own. We're telling everybody else how to raise their kids, and that our values are the best, yet we are living in a cesspool of hypocrisy in many ways, right? So that part is it's concerning, but it's always been here, right? So right. We're struggling, right? We're struggling. I think the election of President Obama, while it was, amazing in one respect, because there was, from a Black pride perspective, it was just, we were happy, we were just over the moon and back. But the sleeping giant woke up. The sleeping giant that is and has continued to be racism. It just woke up a little bit. It's it had nodded off at the gate, and they had let something in, and so there was a problem. Yeah, and that's why you had, leaders in the opposition party vowing to say no to everything, and there not being the capacity and ability to govern and lead in a way that the country needed. There is, going back to Dr. I think Dr. James and Dr. Randolph spoke about there's still these gaps, right? We're still fighting a wealth gap of about 50%, 40 to 50%. There's still this concept of the prison pipeline where black boys by the third grade or so are being determined. They're earmarking and they're forecasting prison development and prison construction based on our children, based on the backs of our boys at age 8, 9. They're
Yeah.
determining that, well, this one he's gonna go to prison and this one might go to college. And that is a dangerous position to be in because those same folks that are making those wagers on our children are the folks that are writing and passing legislation and laws. There are many of which, and they are
Yes,
benefiting off of
yes.
these things as well, right? So we have to be very clear cut. Listen, you can ask somebody that some of the best at one point, some very good stock was found in companies like CCA that build prisons, privatized prisons. The stock was phenomenal at one point. And how was that being done? Off of it was the labor and the I guess the growth or lack thereof of where our young people would go.
Yeah.
Educationally, we still have the gap, right? Wealth, we still have the gap. So there are all these gaps that have not been closed, and there have been very few things done legislatively to close them in the appropriate way. And so then let's talk about for the ones lucky enough to make it, right? You're still dealing with hell. If you and I can probably all the doctors on here and my brother Dr. Davis can probably speak this having been in the military. If you do get what you were supposed to get and you show up to someone's job every day, you are just as much of a threat as you would be if for a black male I was on the street, my pants sagging and a gun in my waistband. If I'm wearing a $3,000 suit and I've got 5 degrees on the wall, I'm probably more dangerous. I
Yeah.
promise you.
Yeah.
Because then there's this whole concept that we probably haven't talked about as George Floyd as he died to the knee of the neck physically. There are plenty of us that go through this professionally every day. There are plenty of us that go through it professionally every day, and whether it's subtle sometimes it's not so subtle, but we live in a different set of standards and we are asked to move differently. And sometimes there is this, it came out in my dissertation focused somewhat around this, and the concept of authenticity for some black men in these positions, they struggle with it. They
Yeah.
struggle with being able to be their authentic selves, and still be appreciated, and that their gifts and their talents and their work be lauded in the same way. Because it's a very slippery slope, it's a very thin line because of microaggression behavior by the masses. So
Yeah.
we're still dealing with all these little things, right? But here's one thing you can't deny, and I'll use in the words of Coach Prime, in the words of Deion Sanders, we're coming. We're coming.
Yeah.
2040, we're going to be the majority. People of color will be the majority. So you can't get around that. And the sooner the healing begins, and the sooner that the power base begins to understand that a little bit more and understand it, to Dr. Regalado's point, some of us don't want to do them jobs. They think, people, they say that, they're in competition and we're taking jobs from them. And I've heard that said. And some of those same people that said that, I kind of looked at them with the side and like, my man, we don't even do the same thing. We're not in the same tax bracket. We don't live in the same neighborhood.
Right.
We're not doing the same stuff. I'm not taking anything from you, and you're not taking anything from me. And so, I think that has to be clear.
Yeah.
We have to be able to move in a right direction, but we've got to be honest about our past. We want to whitewash it and act like it didn't happen, and that we need to just get over it. I get tired of hearing politicians and otherwise say you should just get over slavery because we didn't have anything to do with it. Your lineage did in many cases, and you are the beneficiary. The system created privilege. The same privilege you benefit, even if your ancestors never owned slaves, they were members of a system that you benefit off of today.
Definitely.
That system is catastrophically challenging to people, to Black and brown people.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Very, very powerful. Cleanup hitter, Dr. Lawrence Davis. and give you a good 5 minutes there. I know you've been jotting. I know you've been thinking. And you have to realize, folks, everybody tuning in, we appreciate y'all tuning in. We appreciate the comments coming and keep coming. We got water. We got to look. I got snacks over here. We chilling. We chilling. We're having real talk conversation because that's what we do on the doc chat. But we're keeping it real and honest and light for everybody because we know this is heavy. But you ain't seen one person argue. You ain't seen one person get upset. We're changing the narrative. That's what we're doing here on the doc chat. So, Dr. Lawrence Davis, you up 5 good minutes. Tell us what you got.
Well, you know what? I will say that I enjoy being the cleanup commentator because I get to listen to such provocative statements from my peer group here. And then all I have to do is kind of take notes and tie into it and just make little comments. I mean, this is such an outstanding assemblage. But let me say this. The question is, where are we?
Yes.
We are in an America where our black boys can no longer play cops and robbers.
Mm.
Let one of our black boys go outside and play cops and robbers. We can't do it anymore. Now, a white boy can do that. But a black boy, he cannot do that. That's where we are. We are in a society where I like to call it a modern day Jim Crow society. We're in 21st century Jim Crow. That's where we are. That is where we are. White replacement anxiety. That's real. That is very, very real. But here's the thing. They don't have us to fear. We're not threatening them on purpose. What they feel is on them. We're not the ones that's going out and lynching them. We are not the one that is going out and holding them back. We're not the ones that's wanting to build walls. We're not the ones that want to check IDs and driver's license so that we can try and keep certain individuals out of our states. We're not the ones doing that. But that's where we are.
Yeah.
And until we realize that, I mean, I know this group here, we understand that. But that's where we are. Dr. Young mentioned something that he and I have in common, in that I worked for the government for over 35 years. And during my tenure in the government, I got to where I was a senior officer. And when you're a senior officer, especially in the upper ranks, colonels and generals, where I was, let me be very clear and very frank with everybody that's listening out there. January 6th did not occur without the path being paved from the very top. You don't understand what I'm saying. The path was made clear for those white folks from the very top. When Donald Trump left Mar-a-Lago right after Christmas to go back to DC, he was planning that. Now, let me also give you another example of where we are today. In the Department of Defense and any government office, if you go into a lounge where there's a TV,
I know what he's gonna say.
75% of the time, it's gonna be on Fox News.
I knew he was going.
Now let me explain something to y'all. If I walk into any business, any office, any home, anywhere, and the TV is on Fox News, y'all better hear me. It's telling you something.
Mm.
And that is was prevalent in every government office.
Wow. Wow.
Dr. Young can attest to that.
Mhm.
A preponderance of offices. If you go into a general's office or into a colonel's office and there's a TV, it's on Fox News. That's telling you something.
Mhm.
And if you don't listen to and if you don't pay attention to what they're telling you without telling you,
Mhm.
okay, just pay attention.
Yeah. Good.
And it will tell you exactly what and where our society is today. They're telling you. And they show us every now and then with a George Floyd or a Tyree Nichols, just to try and keep us where they want us to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm telling y'all.
He had to
I'm telling
breathe
y'all.
for that one.
You guys did not
And let
play
me let me step back for a second.
it. You did too. You was like, whoa.
Let me step
Like
back.
lean back. I love it. I love it because this is the real talk conversation have to have. We appreciate you again, Dr. Woody. We're gonna keep having these conversations. We have to keep having because I got some heavy hitters that are giving real knowledge. And I'm gonna throw the next question out there and give y'all a minute, and I'm gonna give y'all some of my thoughts while they kind of get their thoughts together. Because the next
Okay.
question, as I have these thought leaders here, is what do we do now? And where do we go
Ooh.
from here? If you could write the policy, if you could write the regulation, if they put you up in the White House tomorrow, what would you do as a doctor to say?
Mm.
Because this is the part of conversations they don't have. And when we did the Doc Check bonus a few weeks ago, this is something that I'm very passionate about because I got thought leaders here and I want your thoughts. Where do we go from here? If you could tell the nation today, this is what needs to happen. I need to know where you say we go from here. So just kind of giving my thoughts a little bit before we kind of go into that. And once again, just thank y'all so much for tuning in. We know this is 2 hours of power, but folks is here. Like I said, we got our drinks here. We got snacks. We've been chilling. We've been giving great information because I'm telling you, I was hurt that I didn't see more people having this conversation today. And so I
Yeah.
said, we got to have this conversation, especially on this day, because I think all the doctors kind of alluded to it just a little bit. They trying to act like this didn't happen. They're trying to whitewash all of this. They try to what's
Yeah.
the word of the year they've been using? Gaslight all of this stuff.
Gaslight. Mm-hmm.
You're trying to
Mm-hmm.
act like, well, it wasn't so bad, or well, what actually did George Floyd do? All these different types
Oof.
of things where you're sitting there like, did you care he was a father? Did you care he was a black man? And then as we look at these next 3 years that we're going into, we have to look at the fact that Uvalde just happened last year.
Yes. Yes.
Kids, teachers passing away. We have to
Yeah.
realize too, Buffalo just happened last year.
Last year. That's right.
This is continuing to go because the sad part about this is that hurts. And before we move on, Dr. James, I will say this. We cannot get numb to this. We cannot.
Right.
Because every single incident that happens and it deals with us affects us in a way that we will never be able to erase or take away. And now generations sadly are feeling it. And like I said, this is laid back conversation. I know Dr. Young got the little one running around there, he's making noise. I know all that stuff, but we're praying for him because he's going to have to take care of us one day. And so, what do we tell these kids about what's going on, what they see in this day and time? So, that's going on right now. Dr. James, 5 minutes,
Yes.
and we have to be leery
I'm
in
a,
5 hours. So, we should be good to get everybody in, but it's basically if you were in charge, if you can make some rules, some changes, what would we do? What do we need to do as a nation? You're up.
oh wow, I'm gonna try to keep this in 5 minutes. So you
Set
you
that
hit me
timer
with
on,
some
Doc.
powerful stuff just now. I put the timer on. I'm gonna try to
All
keep
right.
to it.
You got it. You got it.
So I'm gonna tell you one of the things that struck me and something when you said what do we do from the moment this happened. That was my question. Prior to being in service, much like Dr. Davis here, I'm still in service. And, my reflection is my reflection, not that of my service. But prior to being in that, I have been privy to sit in a general assembly. Most people don't know what that is. I don't know why. But prior to my time in service, I worked for the United Nations. And so I've been privy to sit down and watch a general assembly. And when I say, baby, everything is put out there on that floor. There is no holds bars. Everybody's talking, everybody's putting it out there. I do believe that that needs to happen on a local level. I do believe that we need to sit down and have real conversations about real things, right? Because a lot of our situations, a lot of our issues, a lot of our problems stem from the fact that we are not having these real conversations. And I'm going to keep coming back to that. We keep asking, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? We still live in a country and a society where things like a slave plantation is a national landmark. We're not going to talk
Yeah.
about that. We're not going to talk. I went to school in the South. I'm from the North. I'm from New York. And I went to school at an HBCU in Virginia. And I ran cross country and we visited a lot of schools. And I'm going to tell you, coming from New York as a native New Yorker and going down to South Carolina, and we're running in a field. And I'm like, what is that? And
Mm.
my Southern counterparts are saying, you've never seen a cotton field? Are you serious? Like that was a real sign that said James Plantation. This is what we doing still? Yeah, that's what we're doing, or being in service and still seeing military bases that are fully operable and national landmarks that were Native American assimilation schools. We not going to talk about this.
Mhm.
This
Mhm.
is okay.
Mhm.
This is what we still live in. This is what's still happening. Let's not talk about my fellow Texan here. Look, I'm from the North, okay? Like I said, I have 3 children that's still school age. I'm gonna tell you what's not gonna happen. You're not gonna send no permission slip to my house the way my mouth is set up, talking about cotton picking field trip. Cotton what? Don't do it. Don't get embarrassed. Don't do it.
Yeah.
So there's still conversations that we need to have
That's good.
that are not being had. And we're still ignoring the fact that these things are still eminent and prevalent in our society, right? And
Yeah.
until we are ready to deal with that and tackle that and say, hey, listen, we need to have these real conversations. This is still a part of our history that hurts. This is still a part of our history that we cannot just move past, sweep under the rug, and act like it's not happening
Yeah.
because it's creating issues like George Floyd. It's creating issues like Tamir Rice. It's creating issues like, Trayvon Martin. These are the issues that this is creating. And if we do not do something about it, if we do not learn from our past experience, we are doomed to repeat it. That is a cliche saying, but it is actual facts.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
cannot learn, you will feel. My family's West Indian, and I hear that saying all the time. Those that cannot hear, you will feel.
You will
Okay.
you will see you
So
like him.
we're not we're not learning from what we're going through, and therefore we keep reiterating the same behaviors. We are right now a platform of a multitude of age generations here.
That's right.
The
That's right.
6 of us make up different generational gaps. Yet and still, we have all experienced one or two of these experiences in our lifetime, in our parents' lifetime. And we even mesh cultural gaps. We have Latinos, we have Caribbean, we have Black American, we have Southern, Northern. Guess what? We have all experienced it. What does that tell you? We are not learning from our experiences
My God.
because we keep repeating them.
Yeah.
So real conversations need to be had, not sugar coated. Not, I don't understand that as an educator. Even why should I have to tailor what, especially in higher education? Why should I have to tailor what I'm saying? How can we have real conversations? How can we have real dialogue? How can the next generations affect change if we can't talk about what change to happen.
That's right.
If it affects your delicate sensibilities, how can we change what needs to happen? Because I'm going to hurt your feelings. It's not about your feelings. Let's really make some effective change. And that means your feelings might get hurt.
Oh my goodness. I'm telling you. This is why we on the doc check, folks. I'm telling you, we appreciate the amazing comment. Hey, we appreciate these great folks on the panel. And Don, I hear you. I hear you. But you know what I'm saying? I don't know if he's ready for this. I don't know if Roll is ready for this on the Black Star Network, and we appreciate the work he's doing on there. And nah, LinkedIn about to shut us down. Are you kidding me? Come on now. You shut down the positive, you leave too much room for the negative. We ain't gonna have all that. That's why we're here on the doc chat. Dr. Randolph, I see you over there smiling. Don't think I don't see you over there smiling. Oh, she ready. She ready. She's like that
She got
good
her
on
notes.
deck hitter. Like, oh, Dr. James got the second, but I'm about to bring her home, baby. I'm about to bring her home. Dr. Randolph, you are up.
So yes, I do take notes. I'm a habitual note taker, especially on things like this, because if for nothing else, I've gotten older, and so I forget. And I may have some wonderful points, and then I'll get through my 5 minutes. It'll sound great, and 2 people later, I'll be like, "Oh darn, that's what I really meant to say."
Yep.
So to actually answer the question, how do we move forward? It's really simple, actually. I know that sounds like it's a farce, but it's very simple. 3 words. I can sum it up in 3 words: ownership,
Yes.
accountability, and responsibility.
Mm.
Now,
Okay.
held within those 3 words are all of the wonderful nuances that Dr. James touched upon. I'm certain Dr. Davis, excuse me, Rolando, and Dr. Young will mention the truth. Yeah, let's tell the truth, right?
Mm.
But in that truth, it's not just a mired definition of the truth as it relates to the United States, which remember only goes back to 1776. Even if we go back to 1619, but there's a broader truth. And that broader truth looks a little bit like this: there's an African diaspora.
Yes.
That African diaspora doesn't only exist in the countries that are either physically or within close proximity affiliated with the continent of Africa. And let's be clear, it is a continent. I remind people that on a regular basis.
Yes, it is.
But it also includes those persons around the world who have left the continent for whatever reason.
Yes, right.
And in several instances, they ended up in the Caribbean, they ended up in the US, they ended up in Central America and South America because of the triangular slave trade.
Yes.
And so when we're looking at things that affect Black Americans, because we're specifically talking about Blacks right now, we cannot be so elitist as to not understand that there's a global inclusivity that has to be reimagined, because what affects one affects all.
Mm.
For instance, if you look at the Civil War, the Queen of England parody to help the South, not necessarily because they were pro-slavery, but because they were pro-money.
Yes.
And cotton meant money. And Eli Whitney, who was Black, had not invented the cotton gin yet. Therefore, somebody still needed to pick the cotton to make the money to send back to the people in the UK. Hold on. Allergies got me. Therefore, we have to look at the totality of the situation. And somebody mentioned in the comments, we need a reconciling and healing like they did in South Africa. Let me keep it 100. I'll keep it 120. I'll keep it 1911 with you and 1920. I'm not interested in reconciliation. Don't tell me you're sorry and don't cry. And that's part of the difficulty in being Black, is that as the educated part of our population, we bear a triple responsibility to help enlighten those who are still dark, thinking that simply because they're not racist and they're not prejudiced, that they are not beneficiaries of a supremacist in a white system. I had to have this conversation with my nail tech. She's like a 60-year-old white woman. Very nice, not racist whatsoever. She's, pro-Black people. But when I explained to her after the Colin Kaepernick situation that it was not some type of advertising ploy for him, that in fact he sacrificed his livelihood for what he thought was better, that she was like, well, I'm not saying this, and I'm not I didn't accuse you of being a racist. If you were a racist, I wouldn't be here. That's flat out what I told her, because I don't, ooh, help me, Lord, I don't rock with those kind of people, right? But I did have to explain to her by the sheer elegant virtue that she is of the Caucasoid race. She is a beneficiary of white privilege.
There it is.
But the good news was, as we say in church, the good news is,
Come on,
she can use that white privilege like Marilyn Monroe did, both to her benefit and to ours. So yeah, the first part is take ownership. It happened. Look, it happened. Y'all enslaved us. In time out. Here's gonna blow some of y'all mind. It was some of our fault too, because there were some of those tribes in West Africa who determined the only way for them not to be enslaved was to sell and capture their neighbors.
that's right.
Now that I have gotten over that point and I have reconciled with myself, white folks, all of them, not some of them, that's the problem. There's only this minutia who truly want to be transparent and authentic about not just the ownership of people, and that the Constitution says Black people are still 3/5 human. Now, this is nothing against Latinos, and this is nothing against Asian and indigenous people, because I have indigenous blood in me. But the only subset of humans to be listed in that great document is Africans as being 3/5 of human. And though the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments exist, we never eradicated that part. And it wasn't until the last 20 years that Mississippi removed it from their state constitution that it was illegal to have slaves and own Black people. Nevertheless, until you take ownership, until you take accountability, and until we as a system understand that we're systemically responsible for the atrocities that happened then and continue to happen by virtue of the systemic racism, we don't move forward. Now, if I'm in the White House, what does that look like? It looks like real meaningful legislation. Right. Another book for you, The Color of Law. We're not going to achieve some of this equality and fairness without some adjudication from a litigious sense. And yes, affirmative action is great, but contrary to them who are sitting at the Supreme Court arguing that it's unfair to white people, Black folks don't benefit the most from affirmative action.
Right.
We do not. We were supposed to, but we do not. Therefore, there are going to have to be some very specific components. But in order to do that, we got to dismantle racism. Dismantle the racism in every area. So it starts with your cognitive learning abilities. Right. It starts with the socialization of our children. It starts with people teaching their children that Black men and women are not monkeys. They are not heathens. They are not threats to them. They are not superior. And then as a people, we have to do what Martin Luther King said, and we got to refuse to stop being second-class citizens.
There we go.
Okay, because I'm not certain about anyone else on the call, but you can't convince me today, tomorrow, or the day after that I am not at very level best equal to somebody.
Man.
Not to be arrogant, but I'm accused of it on a daily basis. So call me what you want, but you can't convince me that I'm inferior to any other human being walking on this earth. Maya Angelou said, I am human, you are human, therefore there's nothing foreign about you because we're both human. If you are a Homo sapien that has 46 alleles and 46 chromosomes that run through you, you ought to find your, again, humanity and understand that the only way to disavow The atrocities that have come into place are for you to man up, put it all on, man up and say, yep, you know what? Let me look at my history. Let me take this DNA test and quit crying when you get the results that show you owned somebody. That's why I won't take a DNA test, because I don't want to read what plantation I was on. I know I was on one. My grandmother is from Virginia and my grandfather is from Rome, Georgia, in a county called Terrell.
Yeah.
And what is our last name? Terrell. It's pronounced differently. So what does that tell me? It tells me that I'm a direct descendant of somebody who owned land in that county. That's the God's honest truth.
Right.
Quit running from the truth. Quit crying about the truth. Quit getting all broken down and emotional and being on show with Dr. Gates and say, oh my God, I can't believe this is true. I just didn't know. How in the heck you didn't know? What did you not know? You didn't know you were white? You didn't know you came from money? You didn't know you came from Tennessee? What did you not know? So again, if we employ those ownerships, accountability, those responsibility, and if we stop being so daggone narcissistic and thinking it's only about the US and provide some global inclusivity to understand that there were 4 countries in this whole world that went and colonialized the rest of the world,
Right.
then we can get to the heart and the root of the issues, and we can find meaningful, pragmatic, and progressive solutions that actually work not just for the betterment of Black people, but for all 8+ billion people who live on this planet.
Absolutely phenomenal.
That's right.
Absolutely
That's right.
phenomenal. This is why we on the doc back, Chunk.
Yeah.
This is why we on the doc chat right here. And you know the devil busy. We rebuke the devil in the name of Jesus, because I'm telling you right now, these are the conversations we need to be having, because we want a better nation. We want a better place for our kids to be. We want a better place where we can be. This is why we have these conversations on the doc chat. Now, I want to go to Dr. Regalado. You are up. Let's make sure we get that good question out there. What can we do as a nation right now, United States, make it better 3 years after George Floyd?
So in my race and ethnicities class that I teach, I often ask my students to do a free write, where I give them a topic and let them write what they think. And the question that I ask is, do you believe that the United States is or ever will be a colorblind society? So it's interesting to see what, mostly young people have to say about that. And for me personally, I get frustrated with people who say, well, I don't see color, or I don't think about that, or I don't care if you're Black, or I don't care if you're Mexican. Care. You need to care. You need to see it, because by doing so, you are showing respect for me. You are showing respect for other people, and you're showing respect for yourself. And, it's interesting, because I think a lot of this, it's just a big cycle, right? Because I teach school, and because I'm, an academic and think that way, and I see the results of some of these situations as it moves through the educational system. One of the things that's really important to me is that we have an inclusive educational policy, a policy that promotes diversity and equal access for all students. Just because English isn't your first language doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean you're less smart. It doesn't mean you have less opportunities. Now, they might be different, but I always say that knowing a second language, that basically means you know 2 languages, right? So you're in a better off situation. I am not fluent in Spanish. Spanish is not my first language. Yes, I speak Spanish. Yes, I can carry conversation. But, I think about that. I think about what privilege I have as an American-born Hispanic person, right? And I'm knowledgeable that there is privilege in that. But I feel it's my responsibility to help other people understand the school systems. I think it's my responsibility to acknowledge people that don't have the privilege that I have and help them along the way. I think sharing information, being an educator in and of itself, is a way that we can make a difference in our community. I also think it's important that we have teachers of color. I think it's important that we have male teachers, female teachers, people of different backgrounds, ages, races, whatnot, because I think students need to understand and hear various perspectives. Um, when you only have your parents in your ears teaching you something and protecting you, so they think, from not hearing about critical race theory or understanding more about immigration or just different things that impact all of us, they're doing their children a disservice. They don't understand that. In my opinion, I think for public schools, they should serve the public. That means everybody, not
Mm.
just this amount of people. If you want your children to only learn this much history or only to be exposed to this much information, go to private school, create your own school. But in the public school system, it should exist to serve all of us. So
Wow.
that's something else that I've thought about. I'm sorry, I'm kind of looking at my notes. I was trying to get my thoughts together
You're
because
all good. You're all good.
it's all over the place. I also think that we need immigration and visa policies that provide pathways for skilled immigrants. We also need to think about family rights. I am so angry when I see families being torn apart or children being isolated and left on their own because adults are so selfish and lack compassion that they don't understand what they're doing to those children, the trauma that they're bringing to those children's experiences and lives.
Wow.
So that's something I think about. I think for undocumented people that are here, we have to find a way to help them. We have to find a way to let them help themselves, right? Please don't think that a child gets access to DACA without paying for it. Our government is benefiting off of DACA. When these kids are filling out these papers, like I said earlier, they're saying,
Yeah.
where you entered this country, let me see what schools did you go to? Let me see your ID. Let me see your shot record. Let me see your report cards from 6th grade, 3rd grade, kindergarten. All of those things, they affect these children's experience. And then guess what? You have a good kid who makes good grades, who wants to go grow up and do something great with their life, and you don't give them access to federal financial aid. You're part of the problem. This is part of the problem.
Wow.
And I feel extremely passionate about that. But I'll conclude my comments with, just for all of us, self-love, self-accountability, and the willingness to be a human being and to put ourselves in other people's shoes. It's so important. One of the things I'm so proud of about my husband, who is African American, is I see him gathering with other men from his community to do good things, whether it's through Kappa Alpha Psi, whether it's through, just, I see you, Dr. Young, Dr. Turner, but, I'm so proud of him because in his heart, he really wants things to be better for his community. He looks up to his older mentors who want to teach him things. He's been open-minded. At 50 years old, he's open-minded to say, I want to learn everything I can. And I think if we all took that perspective on our lives, I want to be open. And it doesn't have to even always be somebody from your same race or background, but just listening, right? The whole equation of 2 ears, 1 mouth. You have to listen twice as much as you speak. And it's okay if you don't agree, but be human enough to say, I acknowledge you. I see your color. I see that these intersections of your life, female, Black, brown, straight, gay, educated, poor, young mother, no children, whatever it is, that they impact your experience. And so I just want to see us be more compassionate human beings.
Powerful. Wonderful. Wonderful. We're not going to waste no time, Dr. Young. You up, my guy. You are up. And we appreciate everybody checking out the Doc Chat. We appreciate you tuning in, all the great comments. We appreciate that. What do you got, Dr. Young? What can we do? Is there anything we can do?
Everything they said. And a mic drop. Everything they said and drop. I'm going to start off. Dr. Regalado, you got a good man. Hold on there. Phenomenal. Right? Dr. Randolph mentioned she didn't want to hear anybody apologizing and about they found out that they family owned slaves or whatever. You ain't got to worry about that, sis. They ain't apologizing. There is a saying that if they show you who they are, believe them. America has shown us
Believe
who
them.
it is.
That's right.
Let's believe it, right? They've shown us absolutely where we stand and who they are. And to that point, I will before I get to the positive things, right? I have to go back to we talked about this word of pathology. What got us here? What where we are? Why people think the way they do? And along the Dr. Randolph's um, penchant for the night with book referrals and book reading. There's a great book by Dr. Carol Anderson called White Rage, and I recommend. It's a good read. She's a professor here in Atlanta at Emory University, and she talks about the outrage amongst some Caucasian folks. It's not that you're black. It's not that you're black and that you live in this country. It's that you're black and you're progressive. It's that you're black and you're ambitious. It's
Mm,
that you're black and you want more. You want to live in their neighborhood in $1 million house. You want to send your kid to the schools that their kids go to. That's the issue, right? Not just that you're black, but that you're black with purpose and promise. And so she kind of carves and peels back the
right.
layers, carves into that in the book. Great read. I would definitely recommend it. Um, but where do we go, right? We've got to first have a reckoning with who we are as a nation, and we've got to really dig deep and own some things, pull some layers back, and get to work. And let me say this: um, we can't do it alone. Black, Indigenous people of color cannot do it alone. We all know there are some folks, some Caucasian folks that we are friends with, that we work with, colleagues. They have to roll their sleeves up and jump in and to get this done too, right? We've got to
Mhm.
all pull to get it done. But we can't keep telling a lie. It's storming outside, and we're acting like it's sunny Southern California. We cannot continue to have those conversations. We gotta be real intentional about it, right? And
Yeah.
so
Please.
from a policy perspective, um, we got to have some sensible policy around, as Dr. Regalado said, around education, housing, right? Housing discrimination is gone back through the roof, right? We're back. We've lost 20 years in housing discrimination. Um, Affirmative action, we talk about it, but none of us really benefited from it. It sounded good, but I mean, to be honest, white women benefited more than anybody. That's who really capitalized
Yeah.
on affirmative action programs. That's just the truth. And I was going to say God loves the truth, and I'm gonna tell it. But we got to stop lying on my Jesus. Stop using this racist and indignant rhetoric and calling it Christianity. Don't my God don't work that way. Stop lying on my Jesus, right? So let's have some real. Let's stop using misplacating religion to be some in a different way, right? Those days are gone. So we've got to again have some really tough conversation. But then to Dr. Randolph's point, we got to sue some folks, and we got to drop paper, as they say, because here's the issue: we're never going to change the culture in Washington and inside the halls of politics until we shift gerrymandering, until we because we can't get the seats, we can't get sensible, common legislation through because we can't get the seats have been maneuvered in such a way that politically we don't have the power, and that's what this thing is all about. It's about politics and money. It's about power and money, right? We need to come up with some sensible legislations around a ton of things. Gun control. I have an issue with the fact that we want to be hands off and we want to be so Second Amendment to let people get whatever kind of gun they want, but we want to tell a woman what to do with her body.
Mm,
Ooh.
Mm,
Come on.
mm.
I'm
mm,
Let's
I'm not
talk
here for
Telling
about
it.
it. Let's talk
I'm not here
about
for
it.
it.
mm,
Right.
Come
So
on here now. Now.
again, really, really sensible policies, bipartisan policies. American politics has gotten disgusting. There was a time that American politicians literally they worked to get a common good, and they worked to find some sense of good in one another and get something done. and now there's more. It's turned into a circus. For the last few years, it has turned into a circus where there are folks that literally are not earning their keep in Congress and in Senate. They're just they get elected to cause more disruption. So we need to be, as a nation, the great disruptor on a system of racism, on a system of oppression, and we really need to do it with calling out what we need to call out. Be very factual, be very direct, be very bold, but do it in love. I'll kind of leave it with this. I think there's hope, right? I saw something the other day that literally I caught an emotional moment because I was like, this is really beautiful. I was getting lunch, leaving a restaurant. It's a African American woman, very big and pregnant, coming out. Got a toddler with her. Her husband is Latino American. They're walking out, and the little boy turns around and walks back in. And I guess that maybe that was his friend from school. A Caucasian family was there, mom and her daughter and her son. And the little boy, the African American mother said, "Go say bye to him." And he said bye to him, and he went over and the little boy hugged. And it was the sweetest thing. And the Bible says, out of the mouth of babes. If we can learn, a lot can be learned from that.
That's right.
Just watching those kids interact, and they clearly weren't being taught to hate. Hate is a taught mechanism. It is a taught dynamic, and they weren't. They were being taught to love. So I think that we've got a lot of work to do, but it's going to take more of us, and we need an overhaul of American politics. Clear them all out. Start over.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Absolutely love it. Dr. Davis, we're going to go ahead and tell you to wrap us on up, sir. You try to keep it at 5 minutes best you can, but hey, go ahead and bring us on home. What you got for us? And make sure I get that.
Like I said, boy, it's good to back clean up with this group here. I get to take down copious notes. I'm like my fellow doctor there. Who I see that Zeta Phi Beta going on there.
Well, when you knew you coming on with a couple of Kappas and all they want to talk about is my frat, this and that, I said, well,
Yeah.
If my shoulders got a little wet, I'm sorry, but it's all right. Go ahead, Dr. Davis.
Yeah, we're the first fraternity. I'm a Masonic brother, so we're the first. But now let me wrap this up. First of all, if we're gonna do anything, if we're gonna fix anything, the basic framework is already there. The Constitution, by those guys way back in 1776, they wrote this document, and I say those guys. If you understand what I'm saying those guys. They wrote down a framework. The framework and the Constitution, it was meant for them. However, they wrote it. And we all should be able to benefit from it. But right now, although the Constitution was structured for equality and justice for all, that is only in the framework. So in order for us to make a change, we've got to actually use what's already in place. Use it to our benefit. But in order for us to do that, though, Dr. Young alluded to it. We're going to have to come together, not just black and brown, but Hispanic and those of our Caucasian friends that actually do believe in democracy and fairness, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, there is a percentage of our nation and our country who's going to fight that, and they're fighting it now. But I believe if we come together and we do this by coming together, utilizing the means that's in place. They put it in place for them, but we have to be able to use it for us as voting. We've got to get out there and vote and to put the right people in office, because those right people in office are going to be the ones who put the right judges in office. All right. Those judges are critical. Federally appointed judges, we've got to, because those decisions that are being made that are taking rights away from us, okay, is through judges. So we've got to put the right people in place, elect the right people so that we can put the right judges in place. We've got to educate ourselves. We've got to use our economy. Black and brown people, we have a financial base that we're not tapping into. We're spending a whole lot of money, but it's not going into our neighborhoods and going back and reinvesting in our neighborhoods. We're spending money and buying things that's benefiting Elon Musk and all these other guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they're growing rich off of us. So we're going to have to turn the tables, reinvest in ourselves. We got to take pride in who we are. You know, we are our heritage is kings and queens.
Come on.
You know? That's our heritage.
Yes,
And at least I say this: we are the first.
Mm.
Okay, we take it all the way back. We are the first.
Yeah.
Okay, they cannot even deny that. Now they don't want to emphasize it, but the first man and woman came from Africa. It is what it is. Now, the other thing that we have to do is use the media platform. What we're doing today, tonight, we've got to make sure we continue to do this. Get the message out, get the word out, galvanize each other, galvanize our communities, inform our communities,
Right.
make sure they understand what is going on. You know, one of the things that we fail to do is we fail to make sure that we are caught up and are aware of current events.
Mhm.
Now, if you're a former officer like myself, one of the things that your evaluation is based on is how well versed you are on current events. Do you know what's going on in our society today and how those things impact you? Well, we've got to know what those elected officials are doing and how those things are impacting us. Okay, and finally, you mentioned the two boys hugging. Those two boys hugging shows what we can be like.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, but it's not always that way because you have other boys out there who are not being taught to hug black boys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're being taught something totally different. And believe me, I'm in Florida, so I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and in Florida, in the neighborhood that I do live, let me tell y'all something. When I ride down the street, now I'm the only one in my subdivision, but you still have Trump signs out.
Yeah.
And before he announced that he was running, they kept his signs up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now they got Trump 2024, but they kept those signs up. Okay, along with their Confederate flags too.
Yeah.
And let me say this: many of them don't put the Confederate flag up front. They use the Trump flag. That's their Confederate flag.
Wow.
Mm.
Y'all think about that.
That's
Mhm.
unbelievable. Unbelievable. We appreciate you, Dr. Whitty. Amazing comment. They showing love to you, Dr. Randolph. Showing love to you out there, which we love. We appreciate all the love out there to everybody.
Hey, Dr. Turner, let me say one thing real quick. Like,
Go ahead.
this is the 50th anniversary of rap and hip hop, right? I think you all know that. What we got to do, Chuck D said it very well. Fight the power.
Fight the power that be.
Fight the power that be.
That's
Public
awesome.
enemy.
That's it. That's it. I want to say thank y'all so much. I kind of got a couple little thoughts I'll throw out there before we wrap up. But before we do that, I just want to say Dr. James, Dr. Young, Dr. Randolph, Dr. Regalado, and Dr. Davis, I can't thank y'all enough for this amazing conversation. And as I said before, you didn't see any arguing. You didn't see any combativeness. You saw intelligent individuals come together and give great perspective on a topic that needed to be talked about in a civil and wonderful way. That's what we did tonight, folks. That's what we do here on the Doc Chat. And we have so many great episodes that are in store. And I'll kind of leave these final thoughts as this. And something I feel led from God that was on my heart. And this is a God led, Jesus led platform. because you see, we have no problem talking about how we're feeling in our spiritual man. And that's why I really feel like right now we have to realize, get yourselves together, because the big thing I see right now is the switch from DEI, that everybody went and got a certificate. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Everybody went and got one. But
Yeah.
pay attention to the fact that these are some of the first jobs that have been cut and all these layoffs, but they're putting trillions of dollars into AI, which means they are trying to create our culture. They're getting rid of us by trying to create our culture in these technological platforms. Be very careful of that. And also, as I leave with this, make sure, if nobody else takes care of you, you take care of yourself and take care of us. Because I will even say this, as we saw what happened with George Floyd. I know they were police officers, but why didn't we go and do something about
Mm. Mm-mm.
it? It hurts. That's what hurts me. Why did we have Eric Gardner that was in New York, and the person that was recording that got arrested?
Right. Right.
The thing that is really something we need to keep in our mind as we wrap up tonight, what are we going to do now, actually putting in action to change all of this stuff that's happened? Is there something we can do? I pray we can, but we got to work together, just like these great doctors said. Dr. James, Dr. Young, Dr. Randolph, Dr. Davis, and Dr. Regalato, I thank y'all. I thank y'all. I'm telling you, they're going to be
Thank you.
back because we got more conversations.
You already know.
They love coming on. So for these weeks of the Doc Chat and more to come, I thank y'all so much. We're going to go ahead and log up. You can find all these great people on LinkedIn. They got great ways you can connect with them. You can connect with me, connect with them, because at the bottom of this, and the end of the day, I want you to go get your doctor degree so you can be like us.
Yes.
So you can be thought leaders, change agents, and be the ones that can make change that's going to change the world. God bless y'all. We appreciate y'all. Peace out.